Again, Kenosha, David, and the Holy Spirit, Linda Barkdale. It was hot. It was a hot and humid day in Kenosha, Wisconsin that summer. Mabel was sitting in the shade of a patio umbrella, and David was sitting facing her. Now Mabel is tiny, and not a day under 90 years old. Maybe she was even older than that. I'm not sure. She was very old. David is a beautiful boy, raven-haired, suntanned, certainly no older than 13 years. But they are knee to knee. They're both leaning in slightly towards each other, and they're laughing, and they're talking. And I watch as David slowly raises his index finger to Mabel's cheek, and he traces his finger down her cheek. It was tender and sweet, and it was an intimate moment. And I hope I never forget it. It was beautiful. So let me back up. Every year my husband and I go with our church youth group on mission trips. We've been to North Carolina, we've been to Georgia, we've been to Wisconsin. This year we're going to Michigan. And we learn so much each year. I mean, there are hardships. Some are work camps. I mean, there are definitely hardships. So you learn about yourself. You learn about your kids. You learn about each other. You learn responsibility, hard work. You learn a lot of things. And you learn about our God, too. And Kenosha was no different. In Kenosha, we were assigned 2 adults and 4 to 5 kids in a group. And luckily, these kids were strangers. Strangers work better for adults than your own kids do. I'm thinking it makes for a better work ethic. My team was assigned that week to an Alzheimer's care facility in Kenosha. Well, even though my kids were strangers, they were not happy. They were not pleased. Working inside all week with old people, so I can only imagine my own kids, what they would have said. These kids complained that whole way over on Monday morning. However, from the very first moment we walked into that Alzheimer's care facility, these disgruntled kids dove into the work, and they dove into those people. These kids fed them when needed. They listened to them. They played ball with them. They colored, and they did art projects together. They changed the sheets on their bed. They danced, and they sang with them. We had fun all week, and I wished I had counted the hokey pokeys and the chicken dance hundreds of times. The old people love that. Alzheimer's patients remember that. So, in spite of the kids' misgivings, I wondered, where did this extraordinary connection with the residents come from? Well, this is a church camp, and we have morning and evening devotions, and this week we were learning how to build relationships. We didn't have hard work this time. I loved this trip. It didn't get dirty. So they told us that building relationships is best accomplished by practicing the Holy Spirit. Practicing the Holy Spirit, you say? How does one do that? Well, it's really nothing more than the golden rule that your mother taught you years and years ago. Do unto others what you would have them do to you. It's biblical. Look it up. Matthew 7:12. And these kids were doing just that. They were practicing the Holy Spirit. Now, when we first walked into the lobby of this facility, there was an enormous framed quote. And it said, "To love a person is to learn the song in their heart and to sing it to them when they have forgotten." The beautiful moments came over and over that week. 12-year-old Ian realized the song in Helen's heart was swimming. Helen could talk about swimming all day long, and she did. And Ian listened all day long. I remember Haley and Abby crawling on the floor, on the carpeting with Jane. Jane was on the floor most of the day. She was picking up little fuzzies, looking at them. She was scraping, and occasionally she would eat them. So they crawled with her, and they tried to distract her. But it was hard, because the song in Jane's heart, the only song, was this, crawling on the floor, looking for fuzzies. I personally love Mary. Mary smiled all the time, all day long. She had lost the ability to speak. The song in Mary's heart was touch. She wanted to be close, and she wanted to be reassured by touch. So I sat on the couch with her very closely. We played with each other's hair, we touched. But we sat and we turned the pages, or I turned the pages of this oversized coffee table book about history. And I pointed out the Titanic and read the dates and the captions to Mary, and she just smiled. She couldn't respond. I showed her FDR's picture, and I told her that this is my mom's favorite president. Of course, Mary just smiled. The warmth of being close was the song in Mary's heart. Now, I spoke earlier of Mabel and David, young David. Mabel's song was walking. She may have walked with a cane, but Mabel was spry and she was active. Remember I told you that I watched as David's finger went up to Mabel's face and down her cheek, and then they laughed. And I asked him later, I said, David, were you tracing a wrinkle down Mabel's face? Because her face was full of deep wrinkles. And he laughed. He said, no. He said, it was scrambled egg on her face. I was just trying to get it off her face. Practicing the Holy Spirit. These kids, they didn't know how to treat these residents. They didn't know anything about Alzheimer's. They didn't know how to talk to them or care for them. But they did know through the Holy Spirit who worked in them as these kids gave them love, they gave them comfort, kindness, and fun to the residents that week. Simply put, these kids practiced the Holy Spirit, and they learned to build relationships based on Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Quote, I'm quoting the Bible. In everything, do unto others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Thank you.